Hello everyone, Jeff Hunt here. I'm going to quickly discuss these Sketchbook Pro Custom Brushes that I've made. The first one is the grass brush, and just like it sounds, it's very easy to use to add grass to your environments. The next brush is a armor brush or a chainmail brush, and that's very nice for using for decorations or to actually make armor. The soft fur brush I like. It's good for backgrounds, a bushy kind of a looking effect. And then these dead tree brushes, they got a couple of different varieties, but laid over each other, you quickly build a forest. The ground brush is useful for adding in some paths to or in and around where your maybe a village is. The inking and the edge brush. Those are there for fine line detail. The bark brush and the barbed wire brush, those are meant to be to provide you the ability to create textures, such as like for fences or for tree bark. Yes, tree bark. Okay, here you kind of see me using these brushes as I put together a design. I started out with the ground brush, just kind of give an idea of which direction I wanted my path to go. And then I'm using this fine line brush to very quickly lay in, this tree that these tree people probably live in. Again, that nice thick to thin strokes that you get with this brush gives you some real nice line variety by alternating line depth and width. You can also very quickly color in a small area like I'm doing here with the opening of this tree. So what you see me doing here is adding in some texture lines, adding a little bit more volume to the tree. I'm using the edge brush here. This is giving me the ability to keep my lines a little bit even with the horizon line as I add the darker lines into the roots. I've always been fond of those old spooky trees that have the roots that kind of go on forever in different directions. That's kind of what you see me doing here, is kind of getting a little crazy with these roots. And what's really nice is when you change your color to white, you can add in negative lines into your dark black areas, and it really kind of makes some of those areas where either there might be a reflection or where maybe you also want to go back in and redefine where your shadows are. And here I'm using the grass brush to start to lay in where the grass would start to grow in and around the tree. And it's very easy to quickly lay these out. Now I'm using some of these dead tree brushes to place in the kind of a dead looking forest behind the tree. These aren't very tall trees. If you ever walk through like a wooded kind of thicket, that's kind of that was the vibe I was going for here. Again, very quickly adding that in. You can kind of already see how it's making the tree itself pop by having all that extra detail behind it. And then, I've got the fur brush out. And what I was going for here was some bushes off into the distance. And because it allows a pressure sensitivity for weight, the heavier you press on it, the darker it is, and the lighter you press on it, the more gray it tends to go. And I'm adding that negative effect to the background. Now it makes it look like there's a little bit more chaos going on in the back. No one ever sees a perfectly unified forest. That's a proper word. Everyone likes to see some crazy sticks going off here and there. And I'm just adding in some additional detail, some straggly grass that's growing around the roots of the tree. You could really go to town with this. Just keep adding and adding and adding. And here I'm adding some additional texture to the tree bark. Adding some lines to break up the black spaces a little bit more. I love how easy it is to lay in these lines. Sketchbook Pro, just in and of itself, is a really good program to use. I've only really started using it probably about a month ago, but I never really realized how easy it is to go from tool to tool with very little effort. And what you're seeing me do is I'm adding different layers to different parts of this design where I want to add a little bit of additional background detail. Here, this particular layer is in the foreground, so this kind of a smoky looking, foggy, misty kind of appeal to it. And I'm using that fur brush again to really build up the background. And by playing with the opacity, it makes the background seem that much further back. I think that fur brush in this case really makes it look a little bit more of a mossy type of situation here. Maybe like one of those Washington state type of trees. So here I took the chainmail brush and I've added some chain designs around the tree, assuming that something lives inside of it. This is probably how they decorate, maybe for the holidays or whatnot. And I'm adding the bark brush now. Just a little bit of bark texture on that right side. Again, I've added the white, some little negative space there for the ground, and it gives that a real nice shadow effect to those stones on the ground. And then I'm using the fine line brush to add in a few additional dead trees in the background. I love making trees. If you know me, and many of you don't know me, but for those who do know me, I do enjoy drawing trees. And I'm adding in some additional detail to the roots. Making those roots stretch. And as here, I'm adding some additional volume to the tree roots, so to make them look more round and tube-like. I hope that you've found this useful. Full transparency, this is the first time I've created brushes, and it's also the first time I've talked about them on YouTube. So I hope that this is worth your while. If you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments. That way I know whether or not to keep making more of them or not. And if you have any requests, I always am open to taking requests. So until next time, be safe and have a good night.